You want me to take it, Aaron, or you want to do the intro?
You can do the intro.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Google Hangout. I'm Bobby Halton. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'm coming to you from a hotel room in Washington, D.C., and we'll talk about why I'm here in a few minutes. But this is the Fire Department Instructors Google Hangout. We do this every second Wednesday of the month, where we talk about issues that have to do with training, the fire service, and we talk to you about what the IFSI, the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, is doing to help make the fire service a safer place, a better place, a more educated place, but more importantly, what the society can do for you if you're a young instructor. Say you just got assigned to the training academy, or you're a newly promoted officer, and you're trying to hone your skills as an instructor. You really need to be a member. There's all kinds of great training that goes on. We meet at FDIC every year. There's tremendous opportunities. If you currently are an instructor or a member of the society, remember there's an election coming up, and we got a lot of great people running for the position on second vice president. That's the one I'm very aware of. But your various regions may be up for election also. We've got Brian Kaz, who's running, and we got Lenny's going to be joining us in a minute. We've got Larry Conley, who's also running. They're running for the overall second vice president position. And then there's another plethora of great folks that are talking about getting into the fray, so to speak. So the society is doing all kinds of great stuff, from the great class on principles of modern fire behavior. I know the society is going to be working with our good friends from Bullx this year, and they'll be doing some of that training, not full blown, but showing some brief examples of it out on the drill field at FDIC, as well as teaching a workshop on it that you can attend to become a train the trainer workshop at FDIC this year. Remember, FDIC is right around the corner. Please don't delay in registering. If you want to be downtown, inside where everything's going on, now's the time to go and sign up for FDIC. Don't delay, because all kinds of great stuff is going to be happening this year. All kinds of new stuff. Met with the National Fallen Fire. We'll get into that in a minute. Let me introduce the rest of the gang. Lenny Carmichael will be joining us in a minute, so we'll put Lenny on. He's struggling with his iPad right now. So as soon as Lenny figures out technology and gets a handle on that, he'll be joining us. But let me introduce to you my good friend Aaron Heller. Aaron.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be back on again this month. Last month I had to run out a little bit early due to a fire, but I got a little time off, so I can be here for the whole hour at least.
And that's a great story, and that's important. Before we introduce Bill Carey, who's our other main guest this week. Bill's a regular on the show, but tremendous insight in the fire service. Before Bill speaks, one of the things I think that's important about the folks that work with fire engineering, fire rescue, fire apparatus, emergency equipment, the folks that teach at FDIC, by and large, we always try to make sure that they've got real street cred, that they've got real credentials that you can document. We try to keep the square rooters and the posers out of the system as best we can. And it doesn't mean that folks like my good friend Dan Majikowski, who's never been a firefighter, are excluded from teaching at FDIC. He's on the board of fire engineering, but Dan never poses as a firefighter. Dan never presumes to tell us about tactics or how to make decisions on the fire ground or anything like that. In order to do that, you need to be a guy like Aaron Heller, who started out at the bottom as a firefighter. Well, hang on, Aaron, you take it for a minute. I got Lenny chiming in here. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I might be able to mute myself. Go ahead, Aaron, take it.
I'm very fortunate that I started at the bottom and I've worked my way to the middle. So it's worked out pretty well. But yeah, I had to run out last hangout, and I was really upset by that in a way, because I want to be a part of it. I know the conversation that Brad and Chief Pegram and Bobby and Bill were having was really, really solid stuff. But we caught a fire and ended up with a little RIT job where we helped get a fella out of a bad situation. He's doing good. Everything's fine with him. He's on the road to recovery. Going to have some shoulder surgery, but hopefully in the next 8 or 9 months he'll be back to work and doing his thing. So it all worked out well. But real happy this week that we're here. We've got some good stuff to talk about. We need to talk about some of the IFSI initiatives that are going on. Some of them that you're seeing splashed all over the place. They're getting some really positive responses. They're catching some flack for things. but it's important that we see both sides of those arguments and have a really frank, good discussion with that. And the big thing that I see is we're going to talk a little bit about our instructors and who's going to prepare instructors for the next generation.
Go.
Are we getting the next generation of instructors ready to run?
All right.
And who's training them? How are we training them? How are we picking them? And those things. So that is where we plan on going with it. So Bobby, I see that we've got Lenny sort of up. Not quite yet. We're getting there. Aha! I see you, Leonard.
Cool. I'm here.
Very cool. Well, for those of you who don't know, Deputy Chief Lenny Carmichael, Lenny and I go back to the volunteer days when in about over 25 years ago now. Lenny is the Deputy Chief of the Trenton, New Jersey Fire Department. He's been a presenter at FDIC forever, a hot instructor all over the country. He's keynoted at FDIC, and Lenny has a whole other perspective on things from both the inner city, from the suburban areas that he volunteered with before the inner city, and a really great national perspective on training and education. So I was really happy that Lenny could come on with us.
I'm not. I've known Lenny for a long time, and I'm not happy about it at all.
I won't tell you that he played center field for our softball team for a long time, and he and I had lots of good evenings after the games.
I got to tell you, before I let you say
the parking lot.
Before I say anything, let him say anything. I got to give him some hard times. First of all, everybody knows there's few people who love Lenny as much as I love Lenny. His keynote at FDIC was just out of this world. If you've never seen Lenny in the classroom, it's unbelievable. There's very few people who are just natural instructors. I mean, very few people. I can count them on, well, my hands, Aaron's hands. I know about 30, 40 people who I put in that group of the truly elite, gifted instructor. And Lenny is one of those guys. I have watched him in the classroom on dozens of occasions and on the stage on dozens of occasions. And the reason he's so amazing is that there's no pretense. There's no attitude. There's no me. This is a guy who just really loves to teach and really loves to share and really loves people. And the fact that he's a great firefighter, notwithstanding, and a great human being, it just makes him that much more enjoyable. But if you ever have the chance to take a Lenny Carmichael, especially when you watch this guy doing hands-on, I went out one time, so I'm at Lenny's house, right? I got to tell this story. So I'm at Lenny's house, and he says, "Hey, you want to see my trailer?" I said, "Oh, okay, sure." 4 hours later, I felt like I'd gone through Saving Our Own 11 times. It was right. I'm not lying, right, Lenny? I'm telling the true story. We're standing out there for his wife. Finally comes out and says, "Hey, both you knuckleheads, you're happy, right?" Dinner was sitting on the table. This poor woman was like, "What are you two idiots doing?" And Lenny said, and then if we want to do this, we open this compartment, and then if we want to do this, so we're going to talk to Lenny more about hands-on and classroom instructional stuff and how to connect with people and as the afternoon goes on today. But Lenny, introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Chief Halton and Aaron. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on board. Bob, it's also really good to see you as well. Wow, I'm humbled to even be here. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, stop it. Billy, say hi.
Howdy, folks. Nice to be with all you good gentlemen today.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, and Bobby, we started having that little discussion about street credibility, and you at FDIC and fire engineering and all the magazines want street credibility for your instructors and your presenters and your writers, and by bringing a guy like Lenny on, it personifies that. We've grown up in the fire service together, gone to calls together, and that's something that you can't put in a research program. You can't put in it's not real easy to grip unless you've actually lived it and seen it. and that's something that is commendable. It's what this is all about, and I think that probably leads into some of our topics. We're talking about instructors and instructors who are gonna move on and teach the guys who are going to be the next generation of instructors. And we've all had mentors, and somebody who brought me along as an instructor, and you, and so forth. And I think that is something that, with the internet society, with the social media society, are we losing that? Is there a chance that we're losing that because guys can kind of self-make on Facebook or wherever, or do we have a method to rein that in? And I wonder. Sometimes I do wonder about that.
Well, I'll speak very briefly to it, and then we'll get into some real training stuff. But
Yeah.
it's important. While Aaron was speaking, and I'll tell you, I'll tell a quick story. I had the great pleasure 2 or 3 weeks ago to spend a little time with General Tommy Franks. And Tommy Franks, 4-star general, incredible leader, and he had an important point to what Aaron was just talking about. Tommy Franks was talking about his son, who's a baby general, and in military terms, a baby general is a brigadier general. So the big generals call them baby generals. It's the entry-level general in the Army. And he's a West Point graduate. And we were talking about, he had talked to his dad, his father-in-law, and said, what are some things I should be thinking about, and blah, 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 blah. And the general, in a very pensive moment, in a very quiet moment, said he loves his son-in-law and knows that he's a world-class officer. Can't think of anything that doesn't make him just absolutely qualified to do what he's doing, except for one thing. Tommy Franks joined the Army as a private. Tommy Franks was trying some other jobs and then went up to a recruitment office in Oklahoma, and next thing he knows, he's in the United States Army as a private. And basic was very different back then, yada, 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 long time ago. Went up through the ranks, got to be a sergeant, decided to go to college while in the Army. Then he was eligible to take OCS, Officers Candidate School, took Officers Candidate School, then became an officer, then went up through the ranks to the rank of 4-star general, running the whole show. The man ran the whole Iraq campaign, whether I don't give a rat's patootie what your politics are on it. All I care about is how the men and women who served under him were treated, and the men and women who served under him were treated with dignity, respect, attention to detail, love, compassion, all the things that are important from a commander, not so much a leader. Anybody can lead. Politicians lead. Businessmen lead. Only fire officers, law enforcement officers, and military officers command. We command. Leadership is for sissies. Command is for real dynamic personalities, because any fool can be a leader. I'm here in Washington, D.C., for God's sakes. Half the population here are total losers who are leading. The command, different story. To command takes street cred. Tommy had that cred. And what he said about his son-in-law, was that he lamented the fact that he never had that opportunity to be a soldier, crawling through the mud, caring about the soldier in front of you and the soldier behind you, caring about that level of commitment. And that's so important. That's what we mean in the fire service when we talk about street cred. Not that you don't have a degree from Missouri or EKU or OK State. Good for you. God bless you. Now go clean a toilet and then go get on a line as a firefighter, trusting your officer and protecting the firefighter next to you or the guy on the knob. Then talk to me, and then be an engineer and learn how to spot your apparatus correctly, whether it's a top floor fire or a second story fire, or whether it's a commercial job, or whether it's a McMansion, or whether it's Then talk to me. Then make sure that you can tell me that you were a lieutenant somewhere where you were responsible for 2, 3, 4 men and women who were doing the job, and that you helped answer their problems, and you went and got food every day, and you helped detail the truck, and you had to stand for inspection, and you had to do roll call, and you had to fill in for the cap when the cap was out. And then tell me you were a captain. And then tell me what you did as a captain, how you ran a house and took care of people. And then tell me how you were a battalion chief and a district chief and an assistant chief and a deputy chief. And you better tell me you took a test and you competed for each of those, because if you didn't, I really don't care what you think about the fire ground. Sorry.
Take a breath, Chief, because that was outstanding.
But that's just me. And I could be completely wrong.
No,
you can't be completely wrong.
I got to tell you, my new tagline is leadership.
Oh, hey, before he starts, I got to do one thing, because when Aaron talks, look at the poster behind Aaron, and this proves my point. Not the beautiful motorcycle, the one above it. That's the actual first flag raised at 9/11. The man raising that flag correctly, and if you want to talk to us, do hashtag FETalk. Hashtag FETalk. Hashtag FETalk if you want to talk to us. We're monitoring that stuff on our handy-dandy phones so you can talk to us. If you disagree with me, I don't want to hear from you. If you agree with me, I'm just kidding. If you disagree with me, let me know. But that picture, that's Mike Dugan hanging that flag correctly. That's a guy who came up through the ranks and who's respected and credible today. And more importantly, the guy at the bottom of that ladder, his name's Chris Engeldrum. He was a member of the 82nd Airborne, got out of the Army, came into the fire service, was a cop, came into the fire service. He's bucking that ladder. He found that flag and asked Mike where to hang it. He's bucking that ladder. Shortly after that picture was taken, Chris found out that his buddies were getting redeployed to Iraq, and he went and enlisted. He went and enlisted with the fighting 69th. He went over there again for the second time. And while over there, he became the first member of the FDNY to die in the line of duty and the first member of the fighting 69th to die in the line of duty. That's cred. That's a real American. That's a hero, not Charles Barkley or this clown Charlie Sheen or these other knucklehead politicians, whether it's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. They're not heroes. They're self-serving bozos. Chris Engeldrum, that's a hero. Mike Dugan, that's a hero. Those men and women on 9/11, they were heroes. If you're within the sound of my voice and you can get to D.C. Thursday, join me on the Hill at Capitol Hill. Join me out there, because I'm going to call out every single politician I see, and I'm going to say, before you stand for pictures with us here today, you better tell me that you found a way to fund that Zagaga bill. You better tell me, because I saw Mitch McConnell last night, and they're all on board. McConnell's on board, Ryan's on board, the Democrats on board, Republicans on board, but none of those knuckleheads have put together a responsible way to pay for it. So before you take your picture with me out there on Thursday, you better have a plan to pay for it so we can push this thing through, because we're tired of your nonsense and we're tired of your BS. There's so many programs out there that this country doesn't need. But you, the Constitution has entrusted you with the defense of this nation. We're part of that defense. Now go fund that bill.
Well said, Chief. Well said. And yes, as a caveat to that, like I always tell people, when you call 911 and you have an emergency, you don't get a mayor, you don't get a politician, you don't get a stakeholder. You get one person up to 4 people, whether it be in a police vehicle, whether it be in an EMS vehicle or fire truck, that are going to come and help you mitigate any emergency that you may have. And the other thing, as you stated, Chief, is that these political pawns, and I'm not going to say all of them are political pawns, because they're not. But I will use one person in general, who's the governor of the state of New Jersey. He's a perfect example. He talks about how credible he is and what he wants to do and keeping people safe, but also at the same time, this gentleman has not done anything for the pension reform in the state of New Jersey. And this comes back down to what we talked about, the foundation of keeping our fire officers safe with the training, because we are losing a lot of our chief officers, captains, lieutenants, and even firefighters at an alarming rate due to the fact of pension issues. In my department alone, next year, out of 225 people, the city of Trenton can have 85 people walking out the door. 85 out of 225 people. If that happens, that will be a catastrophe in the city of Trenton. And I agree with you, Chief. We need to start having people like us in the fire service becoming governors, becoming senators, becoming people of importance that are going to take care of us, because I'm tired of lip service. I want customer service. I've dealt with it for 6 years, and to depend on the SAFER grant, $45 million to save 18 demotions and 61 jobs, one of which was my own. So when we start looking at the credibility of the fire service and the foundation, it all starts with the people who we elect to put in key positions. They also are to take care of our needs just as well as the constituents, but at the same time have a plan and stick with that plan and make us part of the plan. Bring us to the table so we can talk.
And
That's
Christie,
another issue.
And Christie, we're not just picking on Republicans here, because Christie's just a long line of politicians in Jersey who screwed the fire service. Whitman screwed the fire service. Corzine screwed the fire service. It's both sides of the aisle. And right now we've got a whole Congress that ain't doing their job. They should be taking every department in the government and funding them. That's their job, line item by line item. Instead, they pass these continuing resolutions with a percentage of growth. They're not doing their damn jobs. If we did our jobs the way they did their jobs, we would show up at every fire and say, yep, there's a fire. We're here to watch the building burn to the ground and people die. We don't do that. We do our jobs. But enough politics. Let's talk about training.
Well, and so I think, you know what? So we've talked politics and we've gone on our soapboxes for a little bit here the last 10 minutes. But you know what it did? It took us right back to where we are with training. Because like Len said, a good example, Trenton Fire Department could lose 85 senior members next year. So what are we doing as a fire service in general, not just City of Trenton, but what are we doing as a fire service in general to prepare this next group to take our places? My buddy Carl Haddon, who writes for Fire Apparatus Magazine, says all the time to the young guys when we're teaching, my job as an old guy is to make you a young firefighter becomes the old firefighter, and we don't lose you somewhere in the middle. So our job again as instructors, as maybe a little older instructors, is to prepare this next group. And how are we looking at doing that? You know, I think that's something we need to discuss. And where do we go for that guidance and that evolution of instructors in our job? So I mean that's one of the things that certainly is. I keep seeing it when I travel. I was just down in Louisiana a couple of weeks ago, and one of the chiefs said that to me. He said, you know, I'm a young fire department. I have captains that are 23 years old, and they're doing company drills because we're a very young department. What do you suggest? You know, and you want them to go to fires. That's the easiest way to get good at what you do. But in absence of that, and Lenny and I had this conversation the other day, what do we do to prepare them?
Well, I think one of the things that you really need to do, Aaron, and everybody that's listening, the first thing we need to look at is the experience levels. If you look at the fires that we used to go to 25 years ago, and I'm saying 25 because I'm in my 25th year, at the end of the day, we used to go to more alarms and we used to go to more fires. That meant you got more experience, you got more application of techniques, whether you were on a truck company or ladder company on a rescue, whether you had to do searches or opening up a roof or stretching a hose line. Unfortunately, due to technology, which is good, our fires are down. Our runs are down. So now we even have to rely even more on experience, and most importantly, we need to start looking at simulation-based training. We need to start putting people out of their comfort level when we put them in front of a screen and use some type of simulator that has smoke and fire in it and say, okay, give us your initial size up. How are you going to run companies? How are you going to manage companies? And let's take a bigger step. Look what just happened out in Colorado. Okay? We are now in the fire service going to start responding to more of these situations where we have a barricaded shooter, and also it's going to have some type of terrorism mix. It's called recognition prime decision making. And these are some of the tactics and strategies that we need to start taking these young fire officers and these young firefighters, turning them into instructors, we have to give them a knowledge base. And because we don't get the calls that we used to get, we really need to start pushing simulation-based training. And you guys agree with me?
Yeah, well, I've been doing simulation-based training, as Lenny knows, and since I don't want to date myself here, but 1995. And proud of it. I learned it because of the military, and I think it's a valid training tool. There's always issues with any kind of training. The problem with a simulation is it only tells you what's true for the simulation. So you need to be diligent in how you train and how you use them. And there's some great simulation programs out there. I can't recommend any one of them specifically because it would be unfair, but we all know who they are. Just Google it and find the one that suits your needs and start to use it. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. You can open up the pages of fire rescue or fire engineering, and there's photos with ready-made simulations in there for you ready to use. You just say, what would we do at this job? Look at the ladder placement here. What would we do at this job? Where would we bring the first line? What would we do? What would we do with the resources we have, and bring it home so that people feel that way? And
Right.
and you can recreate some pretty good. I love simulation-based training. I think it's excellent. I can't say enough about it. We put it up on fire engineering all the time. We post them on fire engineering. We got some great people that send them in to us, and I know we do 2 a month. We got Joe Pernesti who puts one up every month, and we got Skip Coleman who puts one up every month. Those are really cool, but you don't have to be able to be as talented as Joe or Skip. You can go out on your own and just use existing photos. Heck, you could even do simulations walking down the street with your crew, or pull the rig over and say, okay, now picture this, and use words. Like Lenny's excellent at this. Imagine you got fire blowing out of that window there, and we're seeing smoke pushing out of the cornice over here. And what does that tell you about the fire? And he's trying to explain to him how, okay, it's probably up in the curtain wall or whatever, and it's gotten to the cock loft, and so really cool ideas like that get people going, and then you're right out there on the street, and people would say, okay, Cap, where would we put where would we place the rig, and what tools? Okay, what tools would we take up there? Yeah, the irons and the saws and et cetera, et cetera. But you can simulate in a million different ways. You don't have to be some computer whiz bang. You can do simulations all over the place.
Yeah, and even if you don't have the finances for technology, you can't afford to buy simulation programs. Although I think even those are coming down in cost because of the competition. Free market's a wonderful thing, but see, Bobby and I, we agree on that libertarian standpoint. But
hell yeah.
So I'll show you the "Don't Tread on Me" tattoo there. But anyway, getting back to that. This morning we were out doing pre-plans at work, where we update our pre-plans, get into buildings, and we went into a church facility with a structure that I've never seen anywhere else in the world that I've been. So we took a bunch of pictures of it. We're going to put them up on the screen at the firehouse and talk about the impacts of a fire on this type of a structure. Even the basics of that gives the less experienced guys a little bit more options, a little bit more in the toolbox for down the road. And these are the things that the old timers that I worked with years ago would say, when you're driving down the road, look at that building and picture, fire blowing out 3 windows with victims trapped in the back. What would you do? And start thinking like an officer, even though you're a 19-year-old kid. And what might your actions be? What might my actions be? Start learning. And to this day, at 26 years on the job and over 30 in the volunteers, that's something that I still do when I drive down the street. I look at a building. What I do if I had fire showing from there and a victim hanging out of that? So simulation-wise, even that is a step in the right direction. I totally agree, Lynn. Totally, I like the idea of it. So going from that, and one of the big things that's going on in the fire service today, and that we all see, and we've all been a part of, either whichever way, is IFSI is doing a lot of good work, and others are doing a lot of good work. The research is out there. I'm not a buy-in of any acronyms or anything else. I think we've got plenty of those. But the one thing that I do think is that unlike our politicians and unlike the politics of in society of today, the fire service has to find some middle ground, because those who are benefiting from certain sides of the angle are taking a hard stance on one side or a hard stance on the other side. How do we bring them together? How do we tell our new instructors, hey, don't be completely swayed by the left or completely swayed by the right of whatever tactic you're going to use in whatever region that you're in, because again, I think nothing is set in stone, and I don't think IFSI is setting it in stone. We certainly know the researchers haven't set it in stone and said you must use this tactic, but we've got that movement in the fire service. So how do we prepare our instructors? Hey, listen, there's going to be lesson plans drawn up and things that are discussed based on both of these. What do you think?
Well, if I may start out, it's funny. Sometimes familiarity breeds content, and sometimes we're creatures of habit. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it works for the city of New York or the city of Trenton or the city in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, stick with what you're good at. You know your people, you know your structures, you know your operational guidelines. If it works for you, do it. All it is simply a tool. It's a tool for you to use to help make that person or those people in your department better firefighters, better officers, and better leaders. And what I mean by leader is going out and actually doing it. If you look at the Incident Command System, ICS, and everybody when they get all upset when you say NIMS, okay? And Bobby's laughing because he knows what I'm referring to. But one of the things that you have to understand is that NIMS, all it is a tool. Take it out of the toolbox. Use it, expand it, apply it when you need it, and when you don't need it, you put it back in the toolbox and you go home. If you look at a lot of the classes that are online, you have I-100 and 200 that EMI puts out online. I think that's a great opportunity. But my question is, you can put a person on an incident scene, they can tell you what planning does, they can tell you what ops does, they can tell you what the division group supervisor do, but they do not know how to apply it in an emergency situation. And that is what I'm keep referring back to, is that recognition prime decision making that we need to put in the mental Rolodex of those new firefighters, of those new officers, those new instructors, because they are going to be the future of this business. The next point I'd like to make is that we do a poor job in the fire service of coaching and mentoring. Think about it. When you got promoted, whatever promotion it was, did they give you a formal class maybe a week before and say, okay, Bobby Halton, you're now the chief of my fire department, and now you have a captain who's not living up to standard? Have you had human resource training on how to deal with that firefighter? No. We've done our people a disservice, because now what happens is you study, you get promoted, you come out on the list, you get promoted, and we raise your right hand, but we don't give you the tools to do your job successfully. And these are some of the issues that we're still facing right now in the fire service, and we have to get beyond that and get past that, because, Aaron, coming back, it brings back to your point. Again, you have a toolbox, and you take out of that toolbox what you need. And at the end of the day, that toolbox can be expanded, or it can stay the same size, or it can go smaller. And it's up to the people who are in key positions to make those decisions so that everybody in the organization has that toolbox to pick from.
Well, I agree with everything Lenny just said, but to Aaron's point, I think that the issue that Aaron was raising and Lenny was just speaking to is that there's always been resistance to theories, new theories. I remember when 1500 was going to destroy the world, then 1710 was going to destroy the world, NIMS was going to destroy the world. And Lenny's exactly right. There was a funny blog by, and I'll get to the issue in a second here, but there was a funny blog the other day by a good friend of mine, sweet guy, absolutely one of the sweetest guys in the world, and I love him. I love him implicitly. And he said that just because you've been doing something some way for 20 years and it's working doesn't mean you shouldn't change. And I'm like, well, wait a second. If it's working, it was kind of silly because it was like the definition of success. And I think to what Lenny's point there is that even if it is working, doesn't mean you can't tweak it a little bit. Doesn't mean you can't try a different twist to it. And I think that unfortunately the issue for us is in the fire service is that we mimic society. And what the modality in society is today, rather than listening critically or seriously to someone else's points, as like Lenny just laid out very articulately for us, people are ready to defend their ideology, whatever it is, because they feel that they have to. They feel they have to pick a side. And that's why we see some of our guys calling some of our people deniers, which is an interesting term that the climate change people use it all the time, and it comes to us from the 16th century during the Spanish Inquisition. It was a pretty interesting group to be emulating if you're trying to win people over to your side, and it shows you that that particular argument has almost turned into a religious argument, which is insane. And it's the climatologists have been studying climate for 100 years. Get over yourselves. Yeah, it's been changing. It's always changing. We used to call it the four seasons. But to the fire service point, Steve and Dan and I sit on the UL board for full disclosure, and I'm also best friends, with folks like Kirk Isaacson and Ray McCormick and Aaron and other folks who are a little, they're not skeptical of what we're doing with the UL and the studies, but what they are is skeptical, not of anything. Thomas Jefferson said it best: question boldly even the existence of a God, for if there be one, wouldn't he be all the more honored by the homage of reason than that of blindfolded fear? I think that's an important quote. He also said, which is very important, Thomas Jefferson, he said, I don't care if my neighbor has one God or 20 gods, for it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. So, if the guys in Bipperville want to do transitional attack and then go interior, and that works for Bipperville, God bless Bipperville. If the guys from Bopperville prefer to take the front door and go in that way and ventilate, synchronistically, God bless them. Know how to do them both. Know how to do both tactics well. Steve and Dan would be the first people in the world, and all the other people on the board with me, whether it's Derek Alconis or George Healy, to say every fire is going to have different nuances. What we want is people to have a wider variety of options and to know as best we can, given today's scientific abilities, what to expect the fire to do. That's the whole point. Flow pass, heat release rates. When I used to teach a class years ago, and Lenny and Aaron can back me up on this at FDIC, and this is going all the way back to the late 90s, I used to tell people, if you take the front door, it's an issue. I said at Albuquerque, we decided because, if you take the front door, the neutral plane will come down if you don't ventilate quickly enough or can't ventilate quickly enough to where it'll be compromised and you can get chased back out the front door. It's like going down the barrel of a shotgun. So in Albuquerque, what we've decided to do is we now ladder the building immediately and we rappel in through the hole in the roof to fight the fire. And people look at me like, are you out of your mind? And I said, yeah, it's a joke. But taking the door is like rappelling in if you haven't ventilated to direct that heat away from you. Otherwise, you're going to pull that heat towards you. And as that cool air gravity current runs in, if there's a correct fuel package and it lights up, it's a bad day. It's a really bad day. So to Aaron's point, I think we need to discuss things more intelligently. We need to be more accepting of stuff. But change is really evolutionary. Change that's forced down people's throats or forced on people by the use of force, whether it be by law or whether it be by standard or mandate, never goes well. But if you give the fire service good information and you back it up, by God, they'll take it. And in 5 years, people will be walking around saying, well, that's the way we've always done it. It's just that simple. The fire service, heck, we'll steal anything. Half my quotes I ripped off from other people. Thomas Jefferson notwithstanding. I saw Billy Goldfeder trying to join us. We're going to talk a little about firefighter health to close the day. Billy, try again if you can hear, if you're within the sound of my voice. I saw Goldfeder trying to get in.
Yeah. And to that point, Chief, I think A good example, IFSI is doing a train the trainer for their program here in Mercer County this weekend, and Steve Pegram sent me an email about it, and I don't know that I'm going to teach that program, but I certainly think that it's important for me to understand what they're teaching and why they're teaching it. So no matter where your views are, and the fact of being skeptical, I think skepticism is a good thing. I think the Jefferson quote,
Aaron's locking up on me. Can anybody else hear him?
skepticism. Hello.
Hey,
Hey, Billy, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm not seeing you yet, though. Is your camera enabled? Is anybody else seeing Billy, or is it just me?
No, I'm not seeing him.
We can
Am
hear
I back
you.
here?
Yeah, we're just not getting your video. Let's see. Now I see the icon, which is actually much better looking than you.
I don't
Billy,
know.
is your camera enabled?
I've never used this damn computer for anything before. My camera enabled. Hold on a minute.
Hey, you're giving us old people a bad name, Goldfeder.
No shit. Hold on a minute. Let me try something here.
Well, it's great to have your voice on.
Hey.
There you are.
Whoa!
We just had you. There you are. There you are.
Okay.
Holy mackerel! And you guys were lying. He doesn't look a day over 70.
The squad responding to the scene.
Not
Are they
at
en
all.
route to the medical center as well?
Hey, I think this is working. How you guys doing?
Good. We've been talking about everything from instructional methodology, street cred, and we were just having a little discussion about, blending the stuff that the IFSI was doing. I went off on a little rant a few minutes ago about the Zagoda bill. I met with McConnell last night. I mean, I thought, well, we have you on board and kind of take the next 15 minutes or so, and especially Billy Carey, who's going to be doing some great coverage on Firefighter Nation on this. We're all going to be up here. Well, I'm going to be up here Thursday. I don't know. Are you going to be able to join us, Billy, on the Hill?
I'm not able to go, but I've been, as you've seen, I've been pushing it on social media and on the secret list and stuff to try and get people there.
Yeah, I met with Harold last night. We had a good conversation, and we were in a restaurant, and Mitch McConnell was there, and what's his name, Republican fellow, Darrell Issa, nice gentleman. Everybody supports it, whether Democrat or Republican. The issue is the people who sponsored the bill, the issue that's got us hung up right now, we need to get to those particular people and tell them put the funding mechanism in there. And there's so many simple ways to do it. We were talking earlier about that there's so many programs that are outdated, unnecessary, that could be cut in a moment, but they're all sacred cows to these various individuals. And some of them are supporting organizations that are making hundreds of millions of dollars that don't even need our support. If we took 1/10 of 1% of the federal aid budget to places like Saudi Arabia and China, we could do it. We could fund it in perpetuity. There wouldn't be a responder left living.
That's how it is on all this kind of issues. Is the sacred cows and the hidden issues in their budget to save this bridge or save that cheese studying project and stuff. The bottom line is this, and this is why I'm trying to get through to every firefighter to understand this. The next attack is coming. I mean, it's not any great statement. Everybody understands that. So if this is how the New York City firefighters and the cops and EMS are being treated at the federal level, what can you expect when you have this next incident? Whether it's in Trenton, New Jersey, or whether it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or any of these places. That's the issue. And so we need to get pushing our federally elected officials to preserve ourselves. If you want to take it at the most selfish level, don't worry about the New York guys. Worry about what's going to happen to you and your families if this happens. Now, obviously, I'm being tongue-in-cheek. There are some wonderful people that are literally rotting away. Literally, I mean, we're talking about 300-pound firefighters that weigh 80 pounds now that are rotting away. And while the protections are still in place, it doesn't completely go away to the end of this year, there are other firefighters who are only now getting diagnosed with problems. We're only now starting to see issues. And I mean, if we don't take care of our own people, I mean, we might as well just pack up and go the fuck home.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absent the big F bomb there, but
Are we not serious or something? It's like Howard Stern.
it's live stream. So
it's kind of here at the FDIC that I can't say the F word in class. That's
no, and then it's important, and that's why I wanted you to get on with this today, because guys need to understand there's many ways to find out who your congresspeople are, and they all support it. So if you've got ideas about ways that it could be funded, let them know. I spoke last night and to several people, and I said, there are so many sacred cows out there, whether it be education, whether it be health issues, that are funded that really have nothing to do with the primary role of government, which is the protection of the people of the nation. The government's role is to protect the people. Even us libertarians agree that the federal government has a role in fire protection because it's part of the protection of the nation. It's protecting the infrastructure, the people, from foreign and domestic issues. Domestic issues being, fire, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, and things of that sort. But clearly, terrorism is another side of it, and 9/11 is not the end of it, as Billy said. Heck, look at Paris, look at Mumbai. It's coming, and making that when those folks were laying on the ground in Paris, and one of the things we don't hear about, yes, 130 people died, and that's absolutely horrible. But a lot of people survived because the Parisian fire department were able to get in and treat them. And they did it at tremendous risk. Sam Gazette, a good buddy of mine, he's the Homeland Security guy, former fire hazmat guy for the city of Paris, great guy. And I've been talking with him and a couple of other my Parisian buddies over there. They just like we did, and I know this is probably not politically correct to say, but firefighters in general are willing to put our personal safety at risk to save others. And we do it with no hesitation. Now, a lot of people are going to say that our safety comes first, and God bless them, you're welcome to your opinion. I won't talk to you, but I'm just kidding. That's a valid opinion. But in my opinion, the citizens come first. That's who I swore to serve, and there are times when my personal safety really doesn't matter if I can get the job done. I've got to take those risks, and they're coming. They've promised to come, and so far ISIS has been pretty damn consistent in their promises.
And, Bobby.
Go ahead.
Well, and we talk about ISIS, and obviously that's the scare because they're all over. But when you look at it, look at just the domestic terrorism alone. I mean, the Planned Parenthood shooting in Colorado is bad enough. But talk to our friends in Charleston. I talked to E.J. Mascaro and some of the guys who responded to the church shooting.
Who were the guys in Troy? Wasn't it Troy, New York, yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. The guys are getting shot at.
You're in Leroy, New York.
Leroy.
So this is real. It's not, and the hazards aren't going to go away. The issue of the presumptive cancer bills that we've been fighting for years.
Chemical suicide. If they don't put a note in the door and we open the door, now we've got 4 or 5 firefighters with horrific lung damage.
So a lot of us remember Vietnam and lived through Vietnam, and a lot of us haven't. A lot of the listeners and followers today probably did not. But there's an issue in our country that was sort of the forgotten soldiers. When they came home, we treated them like crap because everybody had their own opinions on the war. Now, in the last 10, 15 years, we've started to realize that with these forgotten soldiers are people who should have been honored and treated, as if we cared about them. Well, that's sort of what's starting to happen with the folks who survived 9/11, but now are starting to deal with the diseases. Yeah, 20, 30 years from now, we'll have some great speaker somewhere saying we should have taken care of those people. But now's the time, and I guess that I'm cautiously optimistic, as you said, Bobby, that there is some movement. That something's going to happen, but Pete King, who oversees Homeland Security in Congress, is still, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And it's insane. It's insane to me that we're having to fight to take care of these guys who are already victims. It's just insane. I get very frustrated with it. that our government bureaucracy is making it where we're all having to now gather our energy to fight for something that should be a no-brainer.
And trust me, I'll be out there tomorrow. I was out there last night. I'm going to be out there this afternoon. I'm talking to as many as come. I have not spoken to one politician who doesn't support it. Where we're lacking right now is the political will for the people who sponsored the bill to say we're willing to cut here or tax there or shift some of our priorities. And that's what's killing this country. What really needs to happen, and there's a very simple 5-step methodology to do it, but the underlying issue is Congress needs to reestablish itself as the people in control of the money. They haven't done that. For the last 20 years, it has been this continuing resolution deal where they just continue the budget plus 5%, plus 8%. That's unacceptable. They've abjugated their primary responsibility. If they would go back to saying, no, the Department of Defense, Department of Education, bring us your budget and go line by line through that, we would have our money tomorrow. And they need to do that to reestablish themselves because the bicameral issues of our government are falling apart because of it. In other words, the executive branch is starting to legislate. That's not their job. The judicial branch is starting to legislate. That's not their job.
They get all crazy and shit.
Right. So we need to demand that the Congress start to do their job. And I think this Ryan kid, and he's a kid to me and Billy, this Ryan kid, he might be the right guy. Go do your jobs. Find us that money. And it's not that hard. And it's not that, in the big scheme of things, it's not that much money.
Yeah, turn the radio lower, sorry.
But you need to reach out to your congressman, and you need to reach out to particularly to the sponsors of this bill, and say, we want a funding mechanism. You got 24 hours to do it. Give them a deadline. You got 24 hours to do it. And I'll shoot an email right now today, right as we get done with this phone call, and I'll tell them you got 24 hours to do it. And if they don't, tomorrow on the steps of the Capitol, I'll be streaming live, and I'll let you know that they didn't do it, and I'll tell you exactly who they are, and we can bombard their in-basket and say, do your job.
Remember who they work for, and you can't apply that to everything. Obviously, they have to do what they think their constituency would want, which would be a refreshing change in many cases anyway. But this one, no one is against this. I mean, just fix it and move on. There's bigger stuff we have to be dealing with right now.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't know what your other agendas are on here, but I did want to share something with you guys today.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left, so share away.
We got all the time. We got all the time in the world, Billy. Share away.
To make this another episode, and one of the reasons I was late today, and it really made me start thinking. Quarterly, all of our chiefs, if you basically, and we have one or two administrative chiefs, but if you're a responding chief, quarterly you have to go to our headquarters and you spend the morning going through command-related scenarios. Today, this quarter was May days and stuff, and it got me thinking, you know, and again, you guys, we've all talked about this kind of stuff before. We can talk about it in the future, but I've been on this kick lately related to who's riding the front seat and who's in command, and it's kind of a big deal. You know, your EMT, you have to do CEUs, but yet fire, we don't seem to have that. Some states have that. But I was just thinking this morning as I'm sweating myself through this process, and it's real. I mean, they put you through real life scenarios. We used the Bryan, Texas fire. We used the Fresno firefighter through the roof scenario. Okay, now let's do this. Now, what would you do? And it's just something to think about for the people who are watching, and maybe for a future show, Aaron or Bobby, is to talk about how often do you have to prove your competency. And it's kind of a big deal. And I started thinking more and more about it. So I thought, you know, I wasn't sure what your agenda was when I was asked to join you kind of as a last-minute guest here, and it's a pleasure. I'm glad I got home in time to participate a little bit. But I would really like to keep raising that issue, and I'm going to certainly raise it. Gordon and I will raise it in our class at FDIC this year. We have it in the last couple of years, and I'll raise it in the big room as well. But how often, first of all, what qualifies you to ride the front seat? What qualifies you to ride in the buggy? And secondly, what continues to qualify you? So I'll leave it at that, and you guys can kind of add your thoughts to that. It's a big deal.
Well, I'm teaching a course right now called American Command. And one of the parts of it are called check rides. Airline pilots do check rides twice a year, where you go through your emergency procedures, everything else. We need to do check rides, and not just for the command level people, for everybody. Command level people, it's critical, but you should do a check ride for your engineer. Go through some pumping scenarios. You should do a check ride for your firefighter. Your SCBA failed. You're in trouble. Or someone else is in trouble, or we're going to the roof. What tools do you bring? We're going to the basement. What are you doing? So I think check rides are a huge deal, and we used to call. Remember back in the day when Billy and I had dark black hair before he started dyeing his, obviously. We used to do that's Lenny. We used to do quarterly drills. Remember quarterly drills, and basically they were check rides for everybody.
Bill, Gary, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I like that part about what Billy was talking about earlier, where you're going through, and it's something that I've been thinking about for many years on our end is with the fire service, because I listen to a lot of government stuff that's out there, C-SPAN and other interviews, and I've often thought, especially in this day and age, a police officer if a police officer were to shoot a civilian today, you can have everything from that incident develop out where we learn everything about it, and it can even go, as we see in some instances, to certain members of a city or an association or organization having to call and testify before Congress. Okay, but if we have a firefighter today with all the advantages of the technology and the funding and the material and the support and the education and training that we have in this day and age, and if he were to, be killed in an apparatus crash, or be lost in a fire, or killed in a building collapse, the range of accountability that's open to the public in that situation stops at the fire department. We have NIOSH reports. We have, even if it could be even better, we can have a report that the department puts together and shares with us. But we really have nothing nationally that calls us out as a body and says, what happened here, and why is this the latest in another series of similar instances where firefighters are getting killed? And what are you going to do to fix it?
There needs to be another dimension. A couple of years ago, and I think, Bobby, we actually may have had you involved in this. The IFC and the IFF got together, and we did a review of NIOSH and their investigations program, and we came up with some recommendations. One was to increase their staffing, which they have done. But one of the things I learned very interestingly is that NIOSH never wants to become a regulatory agency, because then they'll be got rid of. So there needs to be, as Bill just said, some other dimension that takes this and evaluates it. Unfortunately, in some cases, the evaluation becomes a lynch mob to go after a certain chief somebody didn't like, or for all the wrong reasons, so to speak. But there really should be a template, Bill, that we have available or use nationally that goes through the process to see what went right, what went wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and to Bill and Billy's point, one of the issues we've had, and I've done a study, and I do a program called Learning from the Experience of Others. The unfortunate thing for us, and without getting too wonky and having Billy get upset with me, is that we're really stuck in 16th century Newtonian, Descartesian mindsets, where we still believe in a cause of events and a link of chains and root causes and all of these really ancient concepts that no longer pertain to dynamically complex situations. What we need to do as a fire service is learn the modern methodologies and the modern systems for uncovering systematic nuances that can come together in millions of various ways to create accidents and create incidents that we actually can then learn from. And actually, the man who is really probably one of the foremost leading researchers outside of maybe Ensley and a few others is a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Woods, who teaches at the University of Ohio, and just a brilliant researcher. And what we really need to be talking about, it's not the people at the sharp end of the stick, or where the event happened, where the firefighter got injured or fell through the roof, who generally become the scapegoats, if you will, because people have bloodlust, as Billy said, and want to hold just anybody accountable. There's really so many things that if you look at dynamic complexity and you look at that whole new science, there's so many things that happened along the way, everything from how that firefighter was selected, how they were trained, what their equipment looked like, how they interfaced with the technology, blah, 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 blah. That it's not about, and no disrespect to anyone, but it's not about holding anyone accountable. It's about finding out why it happened and then correcting the system. Right? We tend to focus on individuals. Quick way to understand the point. I fly a lot, do about 200 flights a year. So if an American Airlines plane goes down tomorrow and crashes, what will be the cause? Seriously, what's always the cause? Pilot error, and he's dead. So it's okay, Bobby, get on a plane tomorrow. Great example, LaGuardia Airport, right after 9/11, plane takes off, flies, the pilot hits air turbulence. He yokes the plane hard to the left, he yokes the plane hard to the right. The tail snaps off, the plane crashes right there just outside the airport, like 170 people die. But that's because the pilot yoked the plane hard to the left and yoked the plane hard to the right. Now, if yoking hard to the left and yoking hard to the right can snap the freaking tail off the plane, it's not pilot error, it's a piece of shit plane. But nobody wants to say that because American Airlines owns a couple hundred of these pieces of garbage that are just not really airworthy. And that's a bigger issue. So but if the pilot's dead, everything's okay, and we can all go get on our flights tomorrow, and life is good. It was like the texting guy on the train, the pedophile predator who was texting. He died, so everything's okay. If a guy texting can cause the train to crash, it's not the texter, it's the system.
System allows him to text, and this is to tie it back now to system. The pilot had a certain level of qualification to fly that plane.
Absolutely.
We have pilots who are not qualified, but yet they are flying planes. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to regulate everybody out of business and all that crap. Believe me, I have little time as anybody else to go through my retrainings and my annual certs and all that. But look, if you're going to fly a plane, you got to go through this. If you're going to command an incident, you got to go through this. And we can look at it from the legal level. We can look at it from the personal level. There's a million reasons. I'm looking at a fire right now where a firefighter was killed, found in a basement. And we're finding that the incident commander, who was a mutual aid chief, by the way, so you have a mutual aid firefighter dying under your command. That's a whole other twist to look at. Had no qualifications to command a fire.
But as I understand that,
Lenny, that's the majority.
The only thing that I would like to say is that people who are in command positions, what type of training have they had? When's the last time they've been to FDIC? When's the last time they've been to the National Fire Academy? When's the last time that they've gone to in-service training? And let's take it one step further. We have some incident commanders out there that know the difference between right and wrong, and they still choose to do what they want to do because it's about ego. It's never about your ego. It's about the organization that you took a sworn oath to protect. And at the end of the day, you have young men and women under your watch that are looking to you when things go bad. When we start looking at the credentials and the training that needs to happen, I totally agree with you. We should have once a year or twice a year, however that may be, that if you are in a command position, if you're in a leadership position, you definitely should be evaluated to make sure that you are constantly at the ready to protect your people and, most importantly, protect yourself so everybody goes home.
That goes back to what you were saying and what Aaron was saying earlier in the general theme of the discussion about instructors and preparing them. I see it, and I know some of our readers see it, and I'm sure Bobby sees it and Billy see it, where you have some instructors come up and they're doing the instructor bit because that's either they want to add that to the resume, they're coattailing off of somebody's program or somebody's group, and then you have those instructors who really they just want to make their department better, not to always be the guy with the better way, but they just want to make their department better. They want to make their guys better. They want to make their operations better, and they want to be able to, like, when they leave, say, you know, I did a good job. I helped make this department better than what it was when I started. And I think that's important to what you were saying, Lenny, and you, Aaron, in raising the next generation of instructors. The first step, in my opinion, from what I see from our readers, is there has to be a want to be a positive source or a source of positive change in that department, and then with the students. It's not about, you know, whether he's teaching the latest, hottest thing or has been to, you know, has been on this department or that department and run these many jobs. It's just that, hey, I'm here to share something with you that it's important to me, and hopefully it'd be important to you and your operations and all the guys riding with you.
And I agree with everything you just said, Billy. And to everyone's points, let's take Southwest Supermarket. Honestly, we're one of the most well-trained, highly credentialed fire command, not just incident commander, but command teams. They had a full command team there. Lost a firefighter. So don't for 1 minute think, just like, remember, we're fighting what's called a critical, Billy's going to take another Cedron, but we're fighting what's called a critical natural boundary. And to quote James Glick, strange stuff happens on the boundaries. And in science, we now, though, these are self-organizing systems. And so when you have a fire going on, there's a lot of stuff with physics and chemistry that we really need to understand, which is why the research that's going on is so important. And even with the best dang command team that money could buy at the time, on scene, functioning properly, say everything you could imagine, safety officers, senior advisors, we lost a firefighter.
Because it's because the system, the incident commander is part of the system.
Right.
Aspects of it are the weak points. Where are the weak chains, so to speak?
Exactly. So there's no silver bullet that's ever going to stop, you know, this. But it's that lust that every firefighter has for the relentless pursuit of perfection. We know we'll never get there, but we're never going to be satisfied with anything less.
Right.
Well, it's excellent points, and you know, we talked about that instructor, and I know we're running over here, but we'll wrap it up here shortly. Give everybody kind of a final say for the day, because we've brought up a bunch of topics for into the new year, and I'll talk to Steve and Brad about us getting some of these topics as our basis for the next Hangouts. But we talk about these instructors and why they're doing it, and I really like what Bill brought up about the fact that, you know, they just want to make their department better. There are a lot of those guys out there. There's a lot of guys who've come up to me at FDIC and said, you know, I just want to bring what you just gave us to my guys. And I've had some of them that said, hey, can you give me your program, because I want to go teach it at my local academy, which is a whole different story. But, you know, there's that whole side of wanting to make the job better versus the ego-driven instructor, chief, you know, captain, command officer, whatever. So we, as instructors, have to try and lay down why we want you to be, or why you should be that other person. You can't take it away. We've all, at some point, let our ego take over on us. I know it happened to me, and it cost me dearly. And what a reality check that has been. But at some point, we've got to be, as the leaders, and it goes back to the beginning of this discussion and all of it, there's got to be some senior leadership who says, hey, I've been doing this 30 years, but I need retraining. I've been sitting in a right front seat in my own personal case for over 20, counting my volunteer officer time. But you know what? There's things I forget and I miss on calls. I lay in my bunk every shift and think, wow, what could I have done better on that call? And that's what I think, the kind of thinking that we have to keep instilling. And I think in time, you know, if everybody keeps doing it, it gets better. But you're never going to fix everybody. We know that. But we having this voice and having a show like this and having the ability to talk to people and through the social media efforts, have the ability to make a huge impact on the future of the instructors. So that's my my send off for today. I truly appreciate another day getting to hang out with some great people. So if everybody we want to go around the room and kind of give a parting shot, that would be cool. Lenny, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be part of this. This was a great experience. Basically, there were a lot of points talked about as far as instructors concerned. Again, I really think that we in the fire service, we should start coaching and mentoring those younger firefighters, those people who are going to be the future instructors of tomorrow. I also think we need to give them stuff to put in their mental Rolodex, such as simulation-based training. We also need to give them SOPs and SOGs to follow and make sure that they're doing the job right. And also we need to constantly evaluate them to make sure that they're getting better. And at the end of the day, if they're not, then it's also up to us, again, to continue that coaching and mentoring so that they can one day take our places, because let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. And at the end of the day, you know, it's about time for us to pass that torch on to make sure that, you know, we're training our people and making sure things are going right. So thanks again for allowing me to be part of this, and you guys have a great holiday.
Lenny, that was so wrong, bringing up Goldfeder's age again. I mean, I just really...
Bill?
Thanks for having me on. I'm sorry I couldn't get here any sooner, but we were tied up doing that. What made me think about what we're going to talk about today. I think my final comment is this: are you qualified to do what you're doing? What says you're qualified? And whether it was Lenny or Bobby, somebody, or maybe Aaron said before, the old timers and stuff, and forcing yourself to make sure you're keeping up with things. When our boss, Ott Huber, who some of you guys know Ott at Loveland Sims, told us, we're going to take this department in a completely different direction. You'll do nothing that you're not qualified to do. You'll not do anything you're not certified to do. And we're going to make sure you are quarterly. And in my mind, I'm kicking and screaming, saying, well, this is bullshit. You know, I ain't got time for this stuff. You know, what I'm doing, I've done pretty well at these fires. But I got to tell you, in the last 5-8 years since we started this, I am so much better a boss on the fireground than I ever was. And it really reactivated my need and interest in continuing to learn all the time. And I don't want to sound hokey, because it's the reality of it, is it's really how I feel. And I understand that when I get out there, I own this shit. And if I don't act like I own it and take care of it like I would a child, and I mean the overall incident, then I might as well pack up and go home. So thanks for having me, and have a wonderful holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And a wonderful new year. I hope we all have a great new year in 16 for sure. Interesting times.
It's got to get better. Because I had a hell of a quick Bill?
It's like just about every program that we have every Wednesday. We have an hour, and we've got 5 hours worth of subjects that we can discuss. Biggest thing I would leave you guys with, or leave our listeners with, and keeping in with Aaron and Lenny's theme. You know, we live in a great age. I was fortunate enough when I came on as the third generation that if you wanted to know about a fire, you had to either speak to somebody who was there or read it in the paper. And now you can have the advantage of an instructor talking about a fire in front of a class as it's happening. And he can be on one end of the country and the fire can be on the other. But with that, we get into this bit where, like Billy and Bobby were saying, you know, we want to blame, we want to find the fault, and we want to label it. And as firefighters, we want to have that quick fix. We want to have that, you know, here's step 1, 2, 3 to fix it, and it's never broken again. So we just need to remember that the tags inside our coats and helmets say it's inherently dangerous, and that you know, like I say sometimes online, pick on your own fire. You know, think about what you would do in those situations as far as your people, because that's where you're going to have the greatest impact.
Absolutely. All righty, Chief, take it away.
Well, thank you for letting me be on, Aaron, on the Instructor Show, and thank you to the Instructor Society for their incredible support of FDIC and fire engineering and fire rescue and fire apparatus, and all these good folks will be at FDIC, so you can come have a cup of coffee with us and sit down and visit. I'm here in DC this week, so I'm going to be visiting some DC fire stations this afternoon. I'm going out and knocking on doors and talking to people. So bringing my camera with me, Billy, so I'll be able to capture a few things to send to you there for Firefighter Nation.
How long are you going to be in town?
I'll be here till Friday.
Let's see if you want to ride with one of the most dynamo paramedics and one of the busiest paramedic units in the country. I believe Young G is working on Friday.
Okay. Oh, I would love that. I would love that. That would make my day. So I'll be working on cardiac issues here while I'm here. We met with the NFFF last night. I was out with Sharon and Ron and Jane and the gang and Victor, and we're bringing in a bunch of cardio folks. This month's Fire Engineering has got a great series of articles by Denise Smith and others about cardiovascular issues and rehab and the fire ground. So please take a look at it. And we also have a great article on terrorism, which just, if you don't get it digitally. It's just amazing stuff. I'll be on the Hill tomorrow. Again, I intend to confront every politician there who has not identified and recommended a funding source and telling them to get off the Hill, get back to their office. If they want a picture with us, show us that they mean it. Show us that they've told us where this money should come from, because that's the only thing stopping this bill right now, is it has no funding source. And there's more than 1 million sources out there. So I will be speaking for the fire service tomorrow. I really wish that anybody within the sound of my voice within DC can come join us. Be a ton of guys and gals from FDNY, a ton of guys from DC, Maryland, Prince George's guys have contacted me, and gals. I got people coming in from Ohio. I got people coming in from Pennsylvania, Virginia. So please, we'd love to see you. Bill Webb will be out there. Harold Shakespeare will be out there. I know a bunch of folks from the IFC and the women's group and Black Professional Firefighters have all told me they're going to be there. So please join us if you can, and pray. Pray for our nation. Pray for each other. Keep everybody in your thoughts and prayers. There's a lot of people out there who Billy said are sick, and prayers are an incredible thing. It's a powerful thing. And if you don't believe in God, just send good vibes, for goodness sakes, whatever you humanist folks do. And I love you. My favorite writer in the whole world, my buddy Matt Ridley, is one of the biggest atheists in the world. He just wrote a whole book about proving atheism. And God bless him. I love him. He's my favorite writer and a dear friend. And it's a great book. But he's completely wrong. Anyway, but keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers. And because it's really about love. At the end of the day, what Billy said about recertifying, that's about love. It's about knowing that you know what you're doing, because people's lives are in your hands. What Bill Carey said about taking care of people, that's about love. What Lenny does is about love. At the end of the day, nobody does this job for the money. You do it because you love people, and it's just about love. I hate to sound like a dead Beatle, but that's it. That's it for me. I love you. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Festivus for the humanist, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Go celebrate. Celebrate life. It's too short.
Amen to that.